Hello and welcome. My name is Nathan McCullough, and I am the co-founder of STI Unleashed. And we are an international team of USANA associates that are committed to unleashing the best version of ourselves. This is your STI Unleashed training system. This is module 1, so welcome to the very beginning. I consider this the alpha and the omega. It's the beginning and it's the end, and that is because today we are going to be talking about the core foundational skill of your USANA business. Some people call it prospecting, but I like to think of it in terms of connecting with people and building relationships. So what I mean by the beginning and the end is it really is the core foundational skill that if you master, it doesn't matter what country you're in, what the culture is, what the language is, you build the skill of building rapport and connecting with people on a heart-to-heart basis, and you will thrive in this business. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what that looks like. So the first thing to really understand is that you've gotten into USANA, right? And a lot of people know about USANA because of our phenomenal cellular nutritional products. They're world class. We've been the #1 rated nutritional manufacturing company in the world for over a decade. We have, over 3,000 athletes. We're the sponsor of the Dr. Oz show. We have an amazing founder and visionary scientist with Dr. Wentz. But the reality is that the core business of USANA is people. So if you think about, Dr. Wentz, right? He founded USANA with his focus primarily on people. If you look at his vision, right? Dr. Wentz's vision is to help people live life to its fullest in happiness and health, right? That's part of the vision behind USANA Health Sciences. And the vehicle that Dr. Wentz chose to share our world-class cellular nutritional products is people, right? We are the heart and soul of USANA, and that's why I believe, amongst a lot of other different reasons, USANA is really well-positioned and has a huge head up on a lot of the other companies that are out there because so many companies focus on the business, or they focus solely on the product, or they focus on different things. And in USANA, the heart and soul, the bread and butter of our business really is people. And if you focus on connecting with people, providing value, loving people, coming from a giver framework, you will have lots of success in this business. So the mission behind USANA is sharing our life-changing nutritional products. But more than anything else, USANA is living a USANA lifestyle, right? A lifestyle of healthy living in a very holistic way. So if you think about a USANA lifestyle, you're thinking about eating habits, you're thinking about moving your body habits, you're thinking about the nutritional products that you take, you're thinking about what you put into your mind, right, in terms of personal development and the people that you spend your time with. Right? And with this context in mind, right, with the context that USANA is a people business, first and foremost, I want to dive into how it is that we can achieve the vision of a world free from pain and suffering and to help people live life to its fullest in happiness and health. So the mission of USANA is to share Dr. Myron Wentz's vision to every person on earth. Dr. Wentz has always said that his key goal is for the USANA family to be the healthiest family on earth, right? And the best way to do that is connecting with people, right? So again, the 7 skills that are outlined in Eric Worre's seminal book, Go Pro, starts with prospecting. right? And the way that we think about prospecting inside of our system is really about connecting with people. Because at the end of the day, there is an abundance. There's literally an infinite number of people that you can speak to about USANA in your life if you know how to go out and connect with people. You can wake up every single morning and there is an infinite number of people that you can connect with every single day, and your confidence will absolutely go through the roof if you master the skill of connecting with people and building relationships. So, natural question, where do I start? How do I begin to learn and master the skill of connecting with people? So the first place that you have to begin always is working on your own life, right? So a lot of you have heard, if you've been on an airplane, right, you sit there and the hostess always says the same thing, right? The idea is that if the plane goes down, right, you have to start by putting the oxygen mask on yourself in order to be able to give back to the world in the way that you want, in order to make the difference that you want in the world, in order to really help people achieve their dreams. You have to start with yourself first. So my first piece of advice when you're starting on your USANA business is create a health goal for yourself. Whether it's losing a little bit of weight, whether it's getting your BMI down, whether it's taking up a couple of years of age off of your appearance, whether it's running a half a marathon. It doesn't matter what it is. For everybody, it's different, right? But create a health goal. And part of the reason for that is it creates congruence. It creates credibility in your life when you are a product of your product, right? So a lot of people, when they first come into this business, maybe you're not the healthiest person that you know, right? Maybe you're not even the healthiest that you've been in your life. And that doesn't matter. What does matter is that you're committed to creating a healthy lifestyle. You're committed to creating a USANA lifestyle, and you're committed to walking your talk, right? If you're someone who's out there saying, eat well, move your body, and you're sharing that message, but you're not doing that yourself, it lacks integrity, it lacks congruence, and because of that, there will always be a lack of confidence in your communication, a lack of certainty in your communication, because you know in your heart of hearts that you're not walking your talk. So the first thing is start with yourself. And what that means is you must take your USANA products every single day. And depending on what market that you're in, that means taking all three ranges. So if you have it available to you, you want to take your nutritional products starting with the essentials, and then you want to be taking a number of the different optimizers based on your health goals, and then you want to be taking the foods every single day. So if you have the shakes in your market, having the shakes at least once a day. I have had a shake every single day without fail, almost every single day that I've been in USANA. And then the third range is the Sensei skincare, right? You have to preserve the sexy, fellas, if you're out there. And for the ladies, the Sensei is just a phenomenal range. So regardless of whether you're man, woman, it doesn't matter. Use the Sensei skincare range every single day, because I can promise you, when you go to your appointments, if you reflect healthiness, radiance in your meetings, people always observe first and see, are you a product of the product? Are you a model of what you say? And the best way to do that is doing each one of these little things each and every day, so that you're a reflection of your message. And then living a USANA lifestyle means a holistic approach to well-being, just like we said before. So being a product of the product, it means you're doing at least 30 minutes of personal development every single day, whether that's listening to podcasts, MLM Nation by Simon Chan, who's a former USANA associate, like 4-star diamond director. Phenomenal. Free content that's just available at your fingertips constantly, or you have an Audible account, or you're reading books, whatever your preference is, 30 minutes of a day, 30 minutes of personal development a day is non-negotiable. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like taking a shower. Every morning when you wake up, you need to be refreshed in terms of your mindset. Personal development is the best way to do that. Improving your skill set. So there is a difference between personal development and skill or professional development. So, for example, your Eric Worre, your Simon Chan trainings, where they're focusing on the X, Y, and Z, like the fundamentals, inviting, following up, presenting, prospecting, those types of things. Skill development. Personal development is more mindset, right? Are you working on developing your confidence? Are you working on being resilient and being able to weather the entrepreneurial roller coaster? Are you taking time every single day to listen to the little voice, the critical inner voice in your mind, and working on being present to that, right? That's personal development. And then the last thing is building healthy relationships. So, one of the things I was inspired by the most by Simon Chan is that he says that one of the things he loves about network marketing is you become a better friend. You become a better father or mother. You become a better son or daughter. You become a better sibling. Because as you work on yourself, you work on your character, right? Your relationships get better. So that is what it means to live a USANA lifestyle, is have well-being be the filter through which you bring that to all the different aspects of your life. So optimizing yourself and unleashing the best version of yourself. So now, that does not mean that you have to have it all figured out before you go out and connect with people. That's not what we're saying at all. What it means is that you're actively learning. You're spending time doing skill development. You're spending time doing personal development. You're working on your health goals while you're out connecting with new people, right? You don't have to be good to get started, but you absolutely have to get started in order to get good, right? So when you first begin your USANA journey, you're not going to have a lot of personal experience to share from, right? You don't have a lot of first-person testimonials, probably. But when you first start, you want to use your sponsors' stories. You want to use the other leaders' stories in your life as you have your own personal transformations, as your family and your friends are having transformations from the products that you're sharing with them, right? You want to be using other leaders' stories. That's why it's very important to attend convention. It's very important to attend trainings. Be involved at least 1 or 2 times every single week in your USANA business, where you're coming to events, you're networking with people, you're meeting them, you're hearing their stories, because when you're out in your life sharing with people, you're going to be able to say, oh, wow, you have back problems. That's interesting. My friend, and you can reflect back on the story that one of the leaders told, my friend John, who's been in my company for, 5 or 6 years, he was just sharing the other day that he used to have back problems, and then he took these products, he did these things, and now, he's feeling much better. Or, sharing stories of people who were janitors, people who were secretaries, and now they're generating 6-7 figure incomes, and they've completely transformed their lives, right? So you want to use other people's stories. So since this is fundamentally a relationship business, we want to be able to speak from the heart about what we're learning and personally doing, right? So that's why it's so important that you are actively working on all of those areas in your life, so that when you go out and to speak to people, there's nothing in the way. There's no niggling voice in the back of your head, in the back of your mind saying, well, I'm not really doing this, or I'm not really doing that. Right? You don't have to be slim, trim, have it all, your health sorted, if you're working on yourself every day, right? Because you can share about what you're learning. And if you're not earning a lot of money in your business yet, because you're just starting, right? You can share with people, again, about what you're learning. So if you're not earning, talk about what you're learning. And if you're not, if your health is not exactly where you want it to be, talk about what you're learning from your leaders. Talk about what you're doing in order to get better, and share your vision about the future. So many people get caught up on where they are currently or where they've been in the past, when the beauty about network marketing is it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. And it really doesn't matter what you're doing right now. What matters is, what are you committed to? What's your vision for the future, and where are you going? And if you have certainty about where you're going and you share with people about your goals with conviction, then that's what makes the biggest difference. The second thing is cultivating a mindset of being a people helper, right? Or a problem solver, and not a salesman. You hear this so often now, and it's really refreshing that things are changing in the personal development world. But the idea of being an entrepreneur means, in a lot of ways, that you're a professional problem solver, or you're a professional people helper. If you, Zig Ziglar always says, right, if you want to become successful, the key is to help as many other people get what they want, right? So you'll always have what you want if you help enough people get what they want. So if your mission is to go out and solve as many people's problems as you can every single day, all of your problems will be taken care of, and you do not have to be a salesman in that sense where you're having to convince or sell people on products. So it's not about what you say, it's all about the place that it comes from. So again, convincing and salesmanship, a lot of times people focus on what's the right script, what are the right words to say, please tell me what to say, and that's understandable when you first begin, because it's kind of like the training wheels, right? You want to sort of be confident enough when you go out there. But when you're in this business long enough, you really learn that you can keep it simple, and it really doesn't matter what you say. What matters is, are you coming from the heart, right? It matters the place that what you're saying comes from. If you are sitting with someone and you ask them, are you someone who takes nutritional supplements? And you're just saying that from a place of curiosity, and the person can sense that you're not attached, or you're not trying to sell them anything or get them anywhere, then they're open, right? When you have that kind of open energy, then they're going to be open. If you say it in a way, right, where the energy is a little bit different, and you seem like maybe you're trying to get something from them, then the person will immediately become defensive and closed off. So it's not about the words, it's about the place from which you're speaking them. So are you coming from the head or the heart? These are things to check in with yourself, right? When you're communicating from people, are you coming from sort of locked in the head, logic type of thing? Or have you let go of the outcome and you're just sharing from your heart? And that means, are you authentically sharing with someone? Or, right, is there a strategy in behind the communication that you're delivering? I can promise you that if you have an agenda, if you have a strategy, people will intuitively be able to sense it. Maybe they don't know it consciously, but they will be stepping away from, or having a moving away from type of experience, because they're going to feel like something is not quite right with this person. Whereas if your intention is to be a helper, and that's where you're authentically coming from, the heart, then the person will be very open, and whatever it is that you're sharing with them, they'll be open to that. So ask yourself this, right? And you can just check in with yourself. Have you ever noticed the feeling that you have when someone is trying to sell you something? Right? Just close your eyes, reflect on the last time you had that experience of someone coming to you with that moving towards energy, and you feel like they're trying to sell you something. Did you feel like a target or a quota? That's for me, right? A lot of times, if I feel like someone's trying to sell me something, I feel like I'm a number that they need to get, or something like that, right? It just doesn't feel good in your body. And why is that? And the reason for that is because the focus, right, the other person's focus is on them, right? And what it is that they want and what they're trying to get for themselves. And the focus is not on you and what you need, right? So the third place to come from, or the third thing to work on, is working on your focus. And your focus, right, given what we were just talking about, needs to be on connecting with other people. Your intention needs to be out there with the other person. So you want to focus on listening, right? Active listening, not listening for and just waiting for the next time to speak, but active listening and really helping people. So think of yourself as more of like a consultant, right? Who's actively listening and looking for solutions, and not an investigator who's in there looking for clues. So with USANA, one way to think about it is that you have a gift that you're trying to give the other person, or that you're trying to offer the other person. And it comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, just like a jigsaw puzzle. And the other person's life is like the bigger picture of the puzzle, right? And if you're curiously engaged and you genuinely care about the other person, then as they share with you, right, during your interaction, as they share with you about their life, you might just find the piece that's the perfect fit to complete their puzzle, right? So everybody has a different thing that's missing from their life. And a lot of times we're not even aware of it. You know, they call it a scotoma or a blind spot. A lot of times we're not aware of the thing that it is that we're looking for so much. And sometimes it takes the other person, another person, to really listen from, being a problem solver, to highlight that and say, well, what if you had, some more time with your kids? What would that be like? And maybe we've never thought that that was really possible for us, and so we didn't really consider that. And we're like, and you ask somebody that question, and their eyes light up, right? That's when you know, ooh, that's a really integral piece. And the reality is, if you're able to provide that piece that completes somebody's puzzle and you help them transform their life, you've just given that person the greatest gift that they could ever receive. And that's what's so amazing about this industry, is that people get to transform their lives. And if you really, stick with this and you learn this skill, you can be someone who provides transformation for other people ongoingly for the rest of your life. And that's an incredible reward. So again, the focus is on giving and not getting. So again, just think about the two different energies, right? Think about when you're giving something to people, how nice that feels, right? And then think about when your experience is you're trying to get something or trying to take something from somebody, how that feels differently energetically in your life. So the focus is really on giving to other people and not getting things from them. So here's an acronym to help you develop your relationship building skills. A lot of us know the vowels, right? So I want you to remember A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. Okay, so it should be very easy for you to remember that. And then I want you to, as you're going out, practicing connecting and building relationships with people, remember this. Remember the acronym A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. So the A stands for ask, right? It's very simple to understand, but it takes practice. But it takes practice to make perfect, right? And it takes practice to make it permanent, part of how we relate to others. So practice, obviously being the operative word here, practice makes things permanent in our communication. Having it be a habit that is a default is much more important than getting anything perfect. So here's a question, right? Have you ever tried to fit the wrong puzzle piece into a puzzle because it looked like the right fit? Right? Most of us have done puzzles before. You get that puzzle piece and you realize, oh, here it is, and you think that it's the right one, and you try it and you put it in there, and it's just not quite right. It's very frustrating, right? So that's what it's like when someone uses statements when they're communicating with people, instead of questions when they're connecting with people, right? They're trying to convince. That's the sales energy, right? They're trying to convince instead of trying to help. And the other person can tell right away because just like the puzzle piece, it just doesn't quite feel right. So here's a question for you. If a court reporter, right? So think about your last couple conversations, right? If a court reporter was there to create a transcript of all of your conversations with people, how many questions would you be asking in your conversations versus how many statements would you be proclaiming, right? So just reflect on that. Are you asking questions in your communications, or do you spend most of your time talking? Do you spend most of your time making statements? So in order to find out how USANA can be a fit for someone, you have to get into their world, right? You have to look at life through their lens, which means you have to slow down enough to really, first of all, care about the other person and learn about them, right? So you can really see life through their lens. Because a lot of times we're so going so quickly all of the time and looking at life through our own lens and our own framework that we really don't spend time looking at slowing down and really considering things from other people's points of view. You know, one of my favorite books in the world is a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, Stephen Covey talks about the idea of seeking first to understand, right? And then being understood. And that is really an incredible skill, because if you can put yourself last and spend all of your time getting to know the other person and getting curious about them and learning about them, and that's what we mean by getting into their world. You literally go in and experience the life from inside of their perspective. It's a very powerful thing to be able to do. So the best questions that you want to ask people are questions that evoke or invite the other person to share the story of their life with you, right? You become a professional question asker, right? Most people, people don't slow down enough to ask them questions. So when they encounter someone who really cares about them genuinely, it's a very refreshing experience for them. So here's a couple of sample questions that you can use to open people up when you're talking to them in your life. You can ask people, where are you from? That's a really great question to ask anybody at any point in time. Hey, where are you from? And then what brought you to the city that you're in? It's one of the questions I get all the time now that I'm living in Jakarta full time. People ask me all the time, right? I'm the white guy walking down the street, or I'm in the room, right? So people ask me all the time, hey, where are you from? What brought you to Jakarta? And those are just very easy, great ways to segue into having a conversation with someone. And then you can ask about their family, what they do for work. If somebody says, oh, I'm a lawyer, you say, wow, okay. What was it about lawyership that made you wanting to get into that field, right? And then a great question, once you you've gotten to know someone a little bit, and you built a rapport a little bit, is where do you see yourself in the next sort of 3 to 5 years? What's next for you? And the real key here is that you're asking questions that require an explanation, right? A paragraph type of explanation where the other person's sharing, and not one-word answers like yes or no. The E stands for edify. And this is really one of the most powerful relationship building tools that you can use. And what we mean by edify is putting words to what you observe and like about the other person. So here's another question for you. Have you ever noticed how nice it feels when someone gives you a genuine compliment? Right? How nice is it when maybe you're having a bad day, or you're just not really paying attention, you're sort of going through your life, And then someone randomly says something nice about you and you sort of stop and you're like, wow, like, thank you. And in that moment, don't you immediately like that person more? And you're immediately like, oh wow, thank you. And then you immediately comment on something that you like about them or whatever the case may be, right? So it's a very, very powerful tool to build that sort of rapport and get someone to engage with you is to use genuine compliments. Because what it does is it connects your heart to theirs, right? It keeps you on that sort of level. Most of your relationships day to day, most of your interactions day to day are very surface level, right? How many of the time are we like, hey, how are you? How's the kids? How's the weather? How's your job? You know what I mean? Where the intention is not really to get to know the person. The intention is to ask the right question that you can then eject out of the conversation as soon as possible, right? Formalities. So these are, what are the questions? What are the things that you can do to really connect heart to heart with people? So the key to edification is that it must be sincere, right? And it must be really focused on an aspect of the other person's character or their personality that you find to be either unique or interesting or admirable, right? You want to focus on who they are, right, at the level of being, and not what they do or something that they're wearing, right? So you don't want to focus on their career or their shoes or, it's okay to say to someone, hey, I love your shoes, right? And then but you really want to segue into something else, because a genuine compliment and an edification of another person is where you acknowledge them or you recognize them for something that is a very unique trait of their personality, because boom, that's how you really get in and make that connection to someone. If I woke up and I say, if I say to my friend Jenny, that she is a really caring person, I just want you to know I've noticed that in your interactions, you're a really caring person and you make people feel really special, and I think that's really an amazing quality, right? People will be really taken aback if you communicate that correctly. So edification is something that builds the relationship bridge with the other person, right? And opens up the possibility that you can really impact their lives and vice versa, right? That connection that you create means that you go deeper than the surface level and you really create that connection where the possibility of genuine relationship, friendship, whatever the case may be, is possible. I is interest or involvement. So usually in the story that opens up when you ask people general questions about their life is an opportunity to then deepen the question, right? There's like another meta question. So a lot of times it's okay, like I said before, that you comment on someone's shoe or you ask them where they're from, right? They're very general questions. But the key is that it's an opening into a conversation that shows interest, that allows you to get a little bit deeper. So the questions that you initially ask open up avenues where you can further explore as you continue to build your relationship and as you continue to dance in the conversation. So many people with the initial question, instead of acknowledging the answer that the first person gave and then relating to it in some way, and then asking a follow-up question. And this is really important, because you don't want to just ask a string of questions, right? Because it displays a lack of authentic curiosity. And it'll really make the other person, this is like going back to the investigator, right? It make them feel like they're at a job interview or in some sort of interrogation. So if you ask somebody, for example, hey, where do you live? Oh, okay. What do you do for work? What do you do in your spare time? Do you like health? And then pretty soon the person's like, this is weird. Like, where are you going with this? Right? Whereas if you're speaking to someone and you say, what do you do out of curiosity, what do you do for a living? And they say, oh, I'm a lawyer. You say, and you say something like, wow, you're a lawyer, right? You acknowledge their response. We'll go back here one, right? So you acknowledge their first answer, and then you say, that is amazing. my brother is actually a lawyer. He does criminal law, and the reason why he does it is because he wants to, catch the bad guy. And then after you've done that, it opens up. You can ask them another question. My brother, he's in criminal law. He does it because he wants to catch the bad guy. Why did you choose to be a lawyer? Right? So acknowledge the other person's answer, relate to it in some way, and then ask them another question based on the answer that they gave. So the flow there is, you want to ask a question and then relate to their question that they asked. And then you want to tell a story from your own life and then ask more questions. So, okay, here's the example, right? So what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer. Wow, that is amazing. My brother is a lawyer in America, right? He likes criminal law because he likes putting away the bad guys. What made you want to become a lawyer, right? And then it opens up to them sharing oftentimes something that's more deep in terms of their personality, right? Maybe they're really into justice. Maybe something happened earlier in their life and it really drove them on a mission to, want to do something for a very personal reason. And then you've just learned something very, very important about who that person is that you can then relate to on a very personal level instead of that surface level. So when you are listening to someone because you're authentically and genuinely interested, right? Then these follow-up questions come naturally because you actually want to know more about the other person, right? That's why there's no script for this. There's no okay, here's what you ask next. That type of thing, because if you're doing this right and you're being genuine, you don't need a script because the natural follow-on questions just arise organically from the conversation because you just ask something that you're curious about what they just said. So it follows on naturally. So I love this technique. One of the things that I've done very effectively when cultivating this skill is that when someone is sharing with me, picturing the other person's story as they're sharing it like a mental movie, right? Or as a movie in your mind. And then, as you're doing that, just start to experience for yourself, right? Be present to how much more interesting it is, right? When you're doing that, so much of the time when people are sharing, we're just waiting to say what we want to say next, instead of really authentically painting that picture of what they're saying and getting really interested in who they are and what their story is. Because what comes next is this is a very powerful skill. Right? It's very important that people relate to this as a skill. A lot of times people say, "Oh, I'm just not good with people." Right? It's BS. It doesn't matter what story you have about your past and not being good with people and not being good at connecting and blah, blah, blah. Right? Because as you practice this skill, just like carpentry or just like, learning to ride a bike or just learning how to public speak or anything else that you can cultivate, connecting with people and building relationships is 100% a skill. It's not something that you're either born with or you're not. It's something that you develop intentionally. Okay? Because as you get better, you will be asked a series of questions that will likely uncover areas of their life where USANA can add value and or solve a problem for that person. So as you get better at this, right, that will unfold naturally, and you'll get to the point where you can literally, you meet people anywhere, and it'll be easy for you during that conversation to bring up USANA in a natural, organic way because you've learned a lot about that person. A lot of times people wonder, God, how do you bring up USANA in every conversation? And the reason how is because you don't force it, right? You bring it up at the right time based on the fact that you actually care about what the other person's saying and you've listened for a problem or something that's missing in their life that you have a potential solution for. So it's important that you remember asking questions, again, is a skill that you can improve. And do not fall into the trap of thinking that you can't get better at connecting and relating to people. Just do not do that. It's not the truth. And the more interested that you become in other people, then the more interesting they will be in you. That's like gravity, right? Just like you hold up a pen and you drop it and it will hit the floor. If you become interested in other people, you will immediately become interesting to them. So if you like the idea of being interesting, an interesting type of person, cultivate the skill of being interested in other people. Go out and get curiously engaged in other people. A fun game to play would be actually to go out. Don't even worry about sharing Usana, right? Go out and just meet people with the intention of meeting people and getting to know them better and see how that changes the dynamic. So the other thing is you don't just listen with your ears. This is a really important distinction, right? You don't just listen in this sense with your ears. You listen with your eyes. And the most communication is actually nonverbal. They say about 90% of communication actually comes from nonverbal cues, sub-communications, things that are in behind what people are saying, their body language, the way that their eyes work, the way that the way that they're being as they're speaking. So that comes into the last one, or to the next one, which is O, right? So A-E-I-O. O means be observant, right? You can give the clues about who they are and help guide or inform your questions, right? It can give you the clues. So when you're observant, you can get the subtle clues that people are giving away in the way that they communicate, right? And then also what is it that their life speaks, right? What is it that their clothes say? What is it that the way that they carry themselves says, right? The way that and this is another thing to really consider is remember that when you're walking around in your life, you are a representation of your business, and everything that you do represents who you are in the world, right? So people are looking at, are you shaving? What do you wear? What does your attitude say about who you are? What do your clothes say about who you are? So, that may be superficial on some level, but those things speak volumes. They say actions speak louder than words. So you want to pay attention to what are the logos on people's clothes. Do they carry a gym bag? If you're on a plane, for example, what books is someone reading? Or if you're on social media, and you're on Instagram or Facebook or, Tinder or wherever you're on, you can look at people's hobbies and the music that they listen to. All those things say something about someone, So those things are all very important. So if you're out, for example, and someone is obviously someone who eats very healthy and they take care of themselves, that's a great way of communicating to someone. Hey, I noticed that you love salad. What's that about? And then there's you. So A-E-I-O and you. And so the U is at the end of the acronym A-E-I-O-U because it's not about you, right? You come last. So everyone wants to talk about themselves. So it's very rare that the other people in your life feel focused on, right? So most people go around in their lives so consumed about themselves, really, that no one stops and genuinely says, hey, how are you doing? How is your day? And where they're actually exploring about the other person. And if you can be that rare person that focuses on them, makes the attention on them, and you communicate a real, authentic concern about that other person, you can immediately make that person feel important. And I can promise you, if you make someone feel important or special, that immediately builds rapport and builds trust with that other person. And that's just a huge skill to have. So here's another question: ever have you wait ever have someone ask you a question? Okay, have you ever had someone ask you a question and then immediately they quickly shift the focus back on themselves and continue talking, right? How terrible does that feel? And do you, right, immediately feel like just ejecting out of that conversation as soon as possible? You, in that moment, are 100% clear that that person is more interested in hearing themselves talk than they are about listening to what you have to say. And it immediately makes you not really care about what that other person is saying, right? So just ask yourself, how does that make you feel, right? It makes me feel like I'm not important in that moment, right? And just like, when you get interested in other people, they get interested in you, right? If the other person feels like that they're not important, then immediately you're not important to them, right? So always be aware of and present to that mirroring that goes on in relationships. So this is one of my favorite things to think about, right? So when you're communicating with people, you want to just wait. And what I mean by that is you want to ask yourself, wait, right? Why am I talking? There has to be a good reason when you're communicating with someone while you're talking. You should not be doing most of the speaking in your relationships, right? When I'm talking to someone, am I talking to connect with the other person, or am I talking to impress them? And this is a huge distinction, because if you're talking to impress the other person, they will know it intuitively and they will turn off. Nothing turns people off more than someone that just loves to talk about themselves. So, that's something that you really want to focus on. Okay, wait, why am I talking right now? Am I talking just to talk because I'm nervous? Or am I talking to connect with someone? Or am I simply trying to impress that person? And the best rule is, if you've heard of the Pareto principle, the best rule is use the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, the other person should be talking. 20% of the time, you should be talking. And almost all the time that you're talking, you should be doing two things: sharing a story from your own life or asking a question. So the last thing is why, right? Which equals also you, right? So sometimes your story is exactly the right thing that needs to be shared in the moments, in that moment, so that the person can relate to you, right? You have to be relatable. And again, the best way to be relatable is not talking about yourself, but it's about telling stories. And stories, you've heard the phrase, facts tell and stories sell. There's so much truth to that, because the reality is that your stories are the way that we relate. For thousands of years, the way that people have created relatedness and the way that we've related to other people is through storytelling, is through narratives, it's through movies, it's through, the oral tradition, where when someone tells a story and something from your past or something in your current life gets recreated in their story, you immediately feel like you are so connected with this person, right? So you think about, for yourself, when you've been in the room listening to someone sharing about, something that's happened in their life, right, to their mother or something, and it immediately takes you back to a moment in your life with your mom, and you immediately feel like they've just tugged on your heartstrings and you feel really connected with that person. That is the power of stories. And that is where, one of the most powerful tools that you can use. So your stories should only be used for a couple of reasons. For example, to validate someone else's concern, right? So if they say, I don't like to, I'm not a salesman, or, whatever the case may be, you can always say, I know exactly how you're feeling. When I first started, I felt the exact same way. And what I found was, by doing personal development and actually sticking around, it's actually, sales has nothing to do with our industry. And actually, people that are good at sales usually fail miserably in this industry, because this industry is about connecting with people and not selling. So that would be a way to validate someone's concern. Right? The feel, felt, found. I know exactly how you feel. I felt the same way. And what I found was, by doing X, Y, and Z, and then you validate their concern, or to give hope to their struggle. So many people are living this human life, and they have problems, they have concerns, they have things going on in their life. And, if you are someone who's been through some difficult times yourself and you share your story and they hear something for themselves that sparks the possibility that they could transform their own life, it's an incredible, powerful tool to use. And then obviously the edification in a testimony, whether you're talking about the other person or you're talking about someone that as a testimony, it's a great way to tell stories about other people, right? Make sure you're keeping it about other people. Edification always never has anything to do with you, but edification is always about other people, right? Third parties, testimonials are very powerful. Or if you're using a story to introduce someone to USANA. So those are the uses of you in a conversation. So I hope that's been helpful to you guys. Remember AEIOU. And I hope that you go out into your life. I implore you, I ask you, go out this week and practice the skill of connecting with people. The core of your USANA business always has been, always will be people. And the core skill to develop in your USANA business is the skill of connecting with people and building relationships. And so go out this week. Don't even worry about sharing about USANA, but just practice getting curiously engaged with people, practice building relationships and connecting with people, and see how that feels. And I hope that you learned something today. This is the end of Module 1. Please go back to your sponsor or your mentor or whoever you're working with. Tell them what you got out of this module and what you're going to be working on for the week. And I will see you on the next module when we talk about how to invite your friends and family to take a look at USANA. God bless you, and go out there and unleash the best version of yourself.